is always extended any time. If Lord Bishop has forgiven me, clap for me. I'm free. Secondly, I bring you warm greetings of His Excellency, General Govt Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda. My Lord Bishop, I thank you, the members of the Uganda Law Society here, his warm greetings. When he was instructing me about what to speak in the ceremony where I'm coming from, in the morning, I told him about this ceremony and also the ceremony at the Nuncio's residence. And he asked me that when I go to the Nuncio's residence, I should represent him. And I did represent him well by telling the Nuncio the message which he had told me to tell His Excellency the Nuncio. But when it reached signing the condolence book, I put there my name and my signature. I reported to him later, he said that was correct. But on this ceremony, I told him that there is a mass in honor of the Holy Father, Pope Francis. My Lord Bishop, he said that as a leader of this country, he has already sent a message to the Vatican, a condolence message. And therefore, he asked me to read that same condolence message in this ceremony. Because he told me today that I'm representing him in all the ceremonies which I'm going to attend today, as he was briefing me in the morning. So I have his message, which I'm going to read. But before I read it, I would like to say a few kind things about Pope Francis on my own account, as one of the few privileged people worldwide who had a physical interaction with him while he was in his pilgrimages here in Uganda in 2015 and in South Sudan in 2023. Lord Bishop, we know that Pope Francis had visible compassion for the weak, the sick, the disabled, the disadvantaged, the poor, and us believers in Christ, we know that that's where Jesus resides. Because in his teaching, he says that when you see someone who is naked and you clothe him, you are close to him, Jesus. When you see someone who is hungry and you give the food, you are giving Jesus food. When you see someone who is suffering and you rescue him, you have rescued Jesus. We all know that teaching in the Bible. So my first message which I want to share with all of us, especially members of the Law Society, is to emulate the work of His Holiness Pope Francis. If we are doing it, is to strengthen and continue doing what he was doing when he was here on earth. Because I know my Lord Bishop, as much as all these learned friends know, that the law can be used for justice. The law can be used to solve a dispute fairly. The law can be used to prevail over injustice. But at the same time, maybe because we need to amend that act, there are some isolated cases where the law can be used to exploit the weak. The law can be used to exploit the minority. And the law can be used to exploit the poor. So my second message which I want to share with you is that as you exercise your profession in these different capacities, please look at the strong points on how the law is addressing the challenges which affect the people who are disadvantaged, and see how to cure those few instances or isolated cases where the law is being abused. I congratulate you on having an insight, and I thank you on having the insight of inviting His Lordship, the Bishop, to celebrate this Holy Liturgy in honor of Pope Francis. I thank you very much. I also thank the Bishop and the clergy for creating time for us. They have packed schedules, especially at such a time, but they created time for us. We thank them. It's not every day that we have a bishop here celebrating Mass with us. It is not every day that we have priests here celebrating the Holy Liturgy with us. They could have delegated the catechist. So the Holy Bishop and the clergy, we thank you for honoring us. It's that we sit morning, full day, to come and celebrate Mass with us. Pope Francis was a beacon of hope, compassion, and spiritual leadership, inspiring countless individuals through his tireless advocacy for the marginalized and the poor. And that's what I was saying, we should now continue relating. When Pope Francis came to Uganda in 2015, His Excellency the President delegated me to represent him in one of the ceremonies, specifically in Colorado ceremony now, where he was interacting with the youth. A big population of Uganda now, big segment of the population of Uganda now is the youth. In any way possible, Uganda Law Society should address, focus their attention on that big majority and work with government to see how to expeditiously widen the approaches which government is currently implementing in resolving some of the challenges that affect the youth. Those challenges are synonymous in all African countries, but we are not comfortable with some of them. As government, and we call upon your support where possible for us to work together to solve the problems of the youth. This Holiness the Pope at that time gave me a rosary, my Lord Bishop. He gave me a white rosary, which I am always holding in my bag. Even now it is there in the bag. When His Holiness was in South Sudan for a pilgrimage, my Lord Bishop, I personally had the honor of meeting His Holiness Pope Francis during his ecumenical.
I know that they came here in November 2015. I remember going to Namugongo to attend the Mass that he presided over. I am from their parish. That is where he stayed. I saw him close at Mbuya when he was there. I remember him as a very humble man, a man who was really down to earth and who wanted to reach everybody. But the other thing I remember about him is, it was a kind of fresh air. His teachings on modern controversial social issues was kind of fresh air. Some of his teachings about, people in homosexual relationships, people who are married but divorced, the ordination of women and deacons. He has made quite a number of, shall we say, eye-raising statements. In terms of doctrine, he has really not moved the church to the liberal wing much, as some people think, but he has made statements that might perhaps live beyond him. They might make the church think perhaps a bit more deeply about
the main thing was the enthusiasm around the country, around the Pope's visit, and the simplicity in which he carried his message to the people of Uganda. Then his visit, the Uganda Matters Shrine. For me, it told me something, that somebody can come from up high there, but make themselves so simple
and humble.
So the humility, the simplicity, the message around the world, especially Uganda is small, and there are 1.4 billion Catholics around the world, and non-Catholics, but who resonated with his message.
Too bad that we lost our Pope, St. Pope Francis, but most important is the lessons we learned from him. 3 lessons I learned from him. 1 is humility. He was so down to earth. 2 is love for peace. That's how the Pope knelt it down and he kissed the shoes of the Sudan President Salva Kiir and the President with the Riek Machar. That was a signification of peace. And the 3rd is his love for the poor. That's why he chose the name Francis, St. Francis of Assisi. He loved the vulnerable members of our community. We shall greatly miss him. Catholic, I met the Pope, I shook his hands, I kissed his ring, and we lose a person who still had a lot of work in the Catholic Church because he was heading in the right direction at every step he was taking. Like his level of simplicity, bringing the true servanthood of Jesus into the lives of very many people. He portrayed the character of Jesus in the lives of Christians in the world. And we who met him, we are really going to miss him.
But I guess as the host before, they very strongly reminded us in the theme of the Jubilee year, we are pilgrims of hope, marching towards home in heaven. So we strive, we all strive and reach that home, where there will be no sorrow and no pain. This has obviously left a very profound void in the world, especially at this time when the world is battling with serious wars and confusion and trade wars and everything that you can think about. One voice that we're all sure about to mediate and intercede for us was the Holy Father. He was the voice of reason, the balancing act in our convoluted world, the voice of those who could not speak for themselves. But again, as believers, we should not be disappointed because we know where we are all headed and the choice of our destination is usually determined by which route we take in life. Pope Francis' life and works should therefore continue to inspire us to strive for a better and more just world. From his early days, we are told he worked as a Bambuside nightclub, a chemical technician, and later he pursued his calling as a Jesuit priest, and eventually became the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. This was no mean feat, but it also reminds us that he was actually a human being like us and not superhuman. He embodied the virtues of humility, empathy, simplicity, and very strong faith. And this probably explains why he became the superior head of the Society of Jesus barely 4 years after his ordination as a priest. I have also read the story of the miracles surrounding the living nature of the Eucharist that happened under his stewardship as the Archbishop of Buenos Aires. And I'll put a link, get my speech later on, you can just look at that. But he had the rare opportunity of presiding over that particular matter. And for us Catholics, the Eucharist is extremely sacred, and we believe that every day in the consecration of the Eucharist, Christ actually comes down and is with us, and we receive the whole thing about it. And he embraced society's most often shunned people. His words and deeds reminded us that true leadership is rooted in service and love, and not in pomp and splendor.